right here. It's like 3 minutes, 49 second right here on, I think I said Donnie. If I did a mistake, I think is, well, no, it's Donnie. I meant Danny. If I said Danny, that was a mistake. But Donnie Mosberg channel on the YouTube's right here. And it's this was uploaded 10 days ago. This was Malcolm X on bringing the U.S. up on charges in the UN. This is why in my previous video I say that Malcolm X, if I critique anything that he did, I think he should have listened to those in Ethiopia and with the OAAU when they begged him to stay there and to build up the organization, as well as to wait for the return of the Lion of the tribe of Judah, who was making the great big moves in the earth for the liberation of the lost sheep and down-pressed peoples everywhere, humanity everywhere. And we're speaking of the King of Kings, speaking of Kedamawi Haile Selassie. But here, this particular quote right here, because that was the inspiration for the OAAU, right, was the OAU of the Lion of the tribe of Judah located in Ethiopia. All right, so hear this right here, and they're going to ask him a question right here about which African leaders. I want you just to pay note and attention how he avoids, or he wants at that time to avoid, and that's the name that does not get mentioned from black folks so much. You know, that's the name that does not get mentioned. And we know CoIntelPro was about stopping the rise of the Black Messiah. And you could almost see Malcolm X, some would think he was the Messiah, like some thought John the Baptist on that level was the Messiah. But, you know, he denied that. But anyway, let's go forward right here. Let's play this clip right here.
Malcolm, I'm prepared to go into the United Nations at this point and ask. Malcolm, I'm prepared to go into the United Nations at this point and ask that charges be brought against the United States for its treatment of American Negroes.
Oh yes, please. The audience would have to be quiet. Yes, as I pointed out when I was during my travel, that nations African nations and Asian nations and Latin American nations look very hypocritical when they stand up in the United Nations condemning the racist practices of South Africa and that which is practiced by Portugal and Angola, and saying nothing in the UN about the racist practices that are manifest every day against Negroes in this society. Even in South Africa, those Africans aren't faced with bayonets and aren't faced with police dogs. And when I was in Beirut, I saw a picture on the front page of a Negro being beaten in Tennessee, on the front page of the paper in Beirut. When I got to Cairo, I saw the same picture of a Negro being beaten in Tennessee. When I got to Lagos, I saw the same picture. So were these African nations knowing the brutality that is inflicted upon black people in this country, simply because those black people are trying to get what the Supreme Court said they were supposed to have 10 years ago? I would be not a man. If I was in a position to bring it in front of the United Nations and didn't do so, I wouldn't be a man.
Pause right here. That's a very good point Malcolm makes, but of course all this was live and hindsight is 2020. But he says that certain African leaders and African nations going before the UN are hypocritical, speaking about what's going on in Africa. But then a lot of the Negro leaders, and maybe himself included, were hypocritical and not pointing out the great strides and who was making the great strides on the African continent as well, building that bridge on that side where he's tried to build somewhat presumptuously the bridge on the other side, the OAAU. So that charge really needs to be leveled both ways. And that was also part of the CoIntelPro at the time, to stop the black and Negro leaders like himself and MLK, as well as others, not making any mention of who's who on the African continent, but mainly of the King of Kings upon the throne of David, the conquering Lion of the tribe of Judah. That really does not make much sense, but that shows the success of the counterintelligence so-called program, the Satanistic program to stop the rise of the Black Messiah. Make sure that Negroes don't recognize Christ and his kingly character, Kedamawi, Haile Selassie, or who's who. So that goes both ways, because he says that how come the African nations aren't making any mention of Negroes over here while they were being led down the civil rights rabbit hole with ones like Martin Luther King Jr. Now, he was beginning to see that light, but then also, well, we know what happened. But let's just go on. I want to just make that statement right there about the hypocrisy going both ways, right? Let's play it.
To lead the charge in the United Nations?
Well, I find that to say you're going to lead something creates a lot of hostility, division, jealousy, and envy. I hope to work with any group of leaders or any group of organizations to do whatever is necessary to see that this problem is brought before the United Nations.
Have you had any commitments from any nations in Africa to support your move?
I would rather not say at this time. But one thing I found in my travels, all of them look upon us as their long-lost brother.
You realize the implication is that you have had such commitments when you say
this is your interpretation of what I said.
Now you see right there, that's a key. That's a key exchange right there. Let's just rewind it one more time. Let's rewind it one more time. When they ask him any commitments, boom. Let's play it from here.
Because those black people are trying to get what the Supreme Court said they were supposed to have 10 years ago. I would be.
Pause right there. See, remember, it was still so heavily, the mind control was so, and still is so heavily under civil rights, civil rights, get some civil rights, was still under that same slave master system. I mean, he began to break and, really politically analyze it. And we see that he really sought to move the discussion or conversation to human rights, which is almost taking 40 years for most Negroes or so-called blacks or Necros to really, wake up to. But let's hear this exchange again about the commitment from many African leaders. And, you can read a lot into both what he says and even his expression right here. Play.
A man. If I was in a position to bring it in front of the United Nations and didn't do so, I wouldn't be a man.
Malcolm, do you intend to lead the charge in the United Nations?
Well, I find that to say you're going to lead something creates a lot of hostility, division, jealousy, and envy. I hope to work with any group of leaders or any group of organizations to do whatever is necessary to see that this problem is brought before the United Nations.
Have you had any commitments from any nations in Africa to support your move?
I would rather not say at this time. But one thing I found in my travels.
Right there. He would rather not say at that time. Because there were
commitments from any nations in Africa to support your move?
I would rather not say at this time.
Okay.
Nation.
Have you had any commitments from any nations in Africa to support your move?
I would rather not say at this time. But one thing I found in my travels, all of them look upon us as their long-lost brother.
You realize the implication is that you have had such commitments when you say
this is your interpretation of what I said. One thing that I found in all of my travels was that all of the Africans, not only Africans, but the Asians and the Muslims, look upon us as their long-lost brothers. And America had actually tricked many of them into a hands-off policy by giving them the impression that she was honestly trying to do something to solve the problem. My argument over there was designed to prove that it is impossible for the United States government to solve the race problem. It's impossible for a government which has 16 senatorial committees, over which 10 are chairmaned by Southern segregationists, and 20 congressional committees, over which 12 are chairmaned by Southern segregationists. This is a segregationist, racist government that's controlled by people from the South. They can't solve the race problem.
Do you intend to take any part in the political campaign this fall?
We intend to take part in everything that will get results at eliminating the injustices that our people are confronted with in this country. Politically, economically, anything.
Will you support candidates of either of the two parties?
We'd rather not say at this time.
You're prepared to work with some of the leaders of the other civil rights organizations?
Certainly. We will work with any groups, organizations, or leaders in any way, as long as it's genuinely designed to get results.
And any action on the civil rights bill, how will this affect the direction of your movement?
Any action on the civil rights bill? Well, I'm surprised that all of these civil rights groups combined haven't converged on Washington long before now.